Paul Pierce claims to be the best scorer in NBA history. Let's dive into the claim and see if there's any validity here. Now, off first glance, the first time you hear this, your ears perk up and you think, did this guy shit himself again? And that's what I thought too. But, I'm a fair guy. I'm a nice guy. I want to give him a chance. So the young buck I am myself, I did some digging into the stats. And kind of his argument, to summarize if you haven't heard it, but he says he's the best scorer of all time in the NBA. And obviously he can't make the claim on a points per game or on an efficiency standpoint or on a longevity standpoint or on a prime standpoint or anything like that, because he doesn't lead any of those categories. But what he claims is he, in a gotta-get-it situation where the offenses are in the half court and you're going to go ISO, he feels that he is versatile enough to find the weakness of the defender. If he's small, he's going to post him up. If he's big and slow, he's going to drive. He can pull it from three. He can pull it from mid-range. He can fade away off both sides, spin move. He's got a bag. He's got good handles. That's kind of his argument, is that he can beat whatever defender's in front of him and manipulate matchups and get easy buckets in crunch time in the half court. Now, with all that being said, I did do some digging. So the early 2000s was kind of his heyday, as everyone knows, and from about 2000 to 2008. Now, we're going to go to, what year is this? What year did I pull up? 2005-2006 season. So he was 7th in points. He played 79 games, so it probably could have gotten up to... No, he was a distant 7th, so he would have been 7th even if he played 82. Anyways, though, the modern era guys we're going to get into in a second, but we can kind of talk about the other guys in his era, because that's really what he means. Comparing yourself to the modern guys is kind of a different world, but can you get a bucket, half-court offense, 8 seconds on the shot clock, random defender thrown at you, can you get a bucket? So we got Kobe. He was, probably just a more athletic version of Paul Pierce. So I think that Kobe's definitely a better scorer than him. LeBron James. Although I would take LeBron, I understand the argument that Paul Pierce maybe has a better bag, more of a go-to move per se. LeBron's a better transition scorer for sure. He's a better passer for sure. But you could make the argument in just strictly kind of a one-on-one type situation. Maybe Paul Pierce. Allen Iverson. This one's interesting where he's pretty short for the NBA, 6 foot. It could be tough for him to get a shot off on a long defender or on an athletic defender that's a little bit taller than him. So I could see where Paul Pierce is coming at with that one. Gilbert Arenas. Once again, shorter guy. So I could see that. The point guards, they're going to have a tough time getting those shots off, especially if they're not shooting deep. If they're not shooting like a Steph and can really stretch the court. Dirk. Although it's insane, I can also kind of see that. I think Dirk is a little less mobile than Paul Pierce. I would probably still take Dirk, but it makes kind of sense. Paul Pierce is a little bit more versatile. Dirk would probably... What I'll say about Dirk is he requires you to get him the ball, which can complicate things depending on the time and the defense. So Paul Pierce can dribble it from the top. You got Carmelo Anthony, who, honestly, is probably just a slightly better version of Paul Pierce. Could argue they're both the same. You got Dwayne Wade. I'd probably take Dwayne Wade over Paul Pierce. You got Vince Carter. That's a tough one. I'd probably take Vince Carter as well. And those are most top scorers of his era. You got Steve. Yeah, I'd take Paul Pierce over Steve Nash. Yeah. So that's that era. Now we'll get into the modern era. So, although he is, he's pretty stupid for saying he's the greatest scorer of all time. He, in his era, was a top 10 scorer ish. Debatable, depending on who you ask. Now we're gonna get into the. Let's go in the late 2010s. Let's go 2018. Let's look at the top scorers here. So you've got James Harden. Wow. Wow, this is crazy. So James Harden scored 2,818 points. The next closest guy was Paul George at 2,159. So that is a huge difference. Wow, he took 1,028 three-point attempts. That's got to be the most ever. I don't know for sure though. Okay, so first off the bat, James Harden. Especially, you could debate a modern era James Harden like throughout his entire career. No, but 2018 James Harden, he's probably the best scorer ever. Paul George, I think he's probably just a more athletic Paul Pierce. Kemba, could argue it's tough to get a shot off in those close moments. Bradley Beal's efficiency is horrible. Dame, I would take Dame. Kevin Durant, I would take Kevin. Giannis, I'd probably take Paul Pierce. I think Giannis he's the best transition scorer in the history of sports. I guess it'd be in the history of the NBA. But yeah, I would take Paul Pierce. I'd take Steph. Karl-Anthony Towns. I'd probably take Paul Pierce in our perfect situation for him. Got Joel Embiid. The centers are a tough one. The guards, the point guards, the short shooting guards, those are tough because can they get their shot off? But then the centers or power forwards, it's also tough because can they get the ball? And you got Russell Westbrook. Yeah, so, probably already listed off 20 guys I think are better scorer than them. But, yeah, I mean, look, if you're a professional athlete, I understand the swagger and the kind of the confidence. I don't mind it. He's wrong, obviously, but I don't mind it. If you're playing the NBA, especially if you're a starter in the NBA, I got this top 10 in the points, multiple seasons. It's like, yeah, I kind of get it. I mean, if you're that close to being the best, you might as well just say you're the best.